Hi again, good friends. My name is Sokhateb. We are continuing on our journey on personal branding, where we dive into different marketing concepts that would want to align to personal branding and try to improve our personal branding as individuals. And today, what we'll be talking about is something also very exciting. It is the push and pull strategy, which we will look into today and very much dissect and get to understand how those can align to our personal branding and what is it that we've really been doing to actually maximize our personal branding as individuals. So today, as we're looking on the push and pull strategy, when you can define what is to push, we all know what that is: to put a bit of energy, to put something away from ourselves, but at the same time move it to a different end. As well as pushing, also applying energy, but drawing something towards yourself. The question would be, which one is better? Which one works? Which one serves a greater purpose for any individual related to that? Because sometimes we look at all these concepts and really not really dive into and understand more about them. But what we're going to be doing today, I'm going to see how I can break it down. I decided to get a few examples, some familiar, but I really centralized it to energy drinks. I don't know why I weirdly decided that, but it will make sense and be more applicable in comprehending what it is that we're driving across. Today, really, as I've already introduced, the topic is that we're going to dive into that. So one of the things about push strategy, which we'll discuss, it costs very much more to do because you are taking the risk of putting out your product to everybody with the hope to yield as much returns for that. And it is a risk in and of itself because in terms of how that branding is identified, it gives it an impression that it just wants to get the end results and not really build a fundamental relationship with whatever or wherever that particular brand or product is being pushed towards. It's just about sales driven, result driven, which is where we are. We're living in an era where essentially people just want to get the results in the fastest way possible and then measure that result in relation to what they would have done to determine a level of success in the things that they would have put out for people to have. Also, the major drivers of it, as I said, it is to get sales. Now, how do we tie that into personal branding? When we are individuals and we always use a push strategy, we are placing ourselves in a position where we are saying that we just want to get the results. And it's almost as a quick effect to what we are doing and not necessarily taking into consideration the long-term drive of what would work for us ultimately. So when you push anything, when you're trying to get your way across, it's you're not placing yourself as an individual that is creating demand. You're not creating demand for yourself because you're already there. You're already in people's faces. You're already in people's when you think about certain things related to you, they just simply align it to that. You can be accessible, and that's the difference between that you become more accessible because your presence is forever known, it's everywhere, and etc. So almost as if somebody who wants attention, somebody who wants to be recognized, somebody who wants to get super likes, somebody who wants to get all those things. So they use the push strategy to ensure that they always bring about things in the pattern that they do them and measure the results as they would do so. But the other thing about the push strategy is that there is a discrepancy where they miss opportunities. Because if you do not study where you are pushing yourself towards, be it in a group of friends, be it in a workspace, when you're applying for a job, being in the career decisions that you're making, whatever space, whatever area you're in, there's little for you to gain in terms of what it is that you are putting out and lacking the opportunities in between to really build on what it is that you first like, identify, and what it is that you prefer, to whom is your target, and on that premise, to what end do you want it to be? Is it just about getting that like? So if we take pictures at a wedding or at a party or anything like that, you're the first person to put it out so that everybody can see it, so that if they can see it, then they can like it. And if they can like it, then that's what you desire in results. But what that does, it makes you as an individual to always live out in that regard by having to always consistently putting it out. And then that shapes your mindset to say, you are only feeding off the immediate results of what you are gaining versus what it is that you can build for a long time. Whereas on the contrary, which we'll touch on when we speak about the pull strategy, we'll get to that, about what is the result really of that happens regarding that. So that's primarily pertaining to the pull strategy. And also one thing about it, it eliminates the idea of branding, because you're not really focusing on the long term, you're focusing on the short term. So when people think about you, there's little for them to identify for you as a brand, right? It merely just to promote quickly as possible. And again, we can check out the videos that I have put out already about the different types of brand life cycle, how you start your brand, how you maintain it over time, and what types of products all you as an individual are, so that you can be able to enable that. Now, when we talk about, then we're going to jump on to the pull strategy. The pull strategy, unlike that, focuses on increasing the number of people who participate in that particular brand. Now, it is an active driver so that people can always want it. It is always demand-based. When we were younger, we used to watch the Verimark adverts. Now, the Verimark adverts, what they would do, they'll put out an advert, show and demonstrate what the product does, and then they'll put a number right at the bottom of the screen for you to contact them to order that particular product. Now, Verimark back then, way long ago, didn't have actual stores like they do today, and didn't have direct partnership with retailers so that they can position themselves in store and have the products that are there. So how did that happen? When you put a product, you demonstrate it, see how it works. Then what happens is, then the consumer go to their local stores and ask the store manager, why don't you have this product here? Where is it? Why can't I have it? And then the store manager then links up with the actual manufacturer or producer of that product or brand and asks for orders, because there's a high demand of that particular product to be stored or stocked in their store so that the consumers can buy. Now, that is a pull strategy. You put out something out there, tantalize the market, tantalize the people, but people are now always curious about when is she going to release? When is she going to post again? When is she going to, put out something that we've been waiting for? We always anticipate. And I think that is the same model that is being driven regarding subscribing, is that when you have liked the content of any individual, you just want to get the notification bell ringing whenever they post something. And that is a pull strategy that YouTube has actually imparted in the way in which that is done. So that's how they'll get the products. And so the more there was demand, then it will pull that. One of the stories about the pull strategy is Red Bull, when it began in the 1980s, they entered the market where there was a high competition of energy drinks at the time. Now, young people, campuses, people who went out to go party, always wanted to find a way to get some energy to have a good time. Now, Red Bull realized that, being new in the game or not really prominently known, they decided to use a strategy that was a social proof to ensure that they have a bit of pulling for their side. So what did they do? Red Bull used the empty can strategy. They emptied cans or put them in dustbins in all central places in London, and in all dustbins where people would actually go, even on the campuses, and even if they even went to as far as throwing cans outside of parties every single event, and sponsor the DJs who drink those drinks as they are doing their stuff on the ones and twos. So now when people leave that particular party, or they'll come across them on campus in the dustbin, then their thought was, wait a minute, there must have been a lot of people drinking this, so maybe it's worth trying out. And that strategy actually worked out so perfectly for them that, as we now know, Red Bull owns about 43% of the market share in the energy drinking category, or in the energy drinking industry. And so it is amazing that some strategies that are totally cost effective, they retain to build a brand on its own. What am I saying? I'm saying your brand, you don't have to put out everything all at once. Your individual self is the biggest commodity that you can actually leverage off. In spite of wherever you are in your life, in spite of whatever stage you are in, your exclusivity and what it is that you put out makes you have the power to determine what it is exactly that you can decide to put out, and actually see that over time it benefits. It brings you respect, it brings you dignity, it brings you lovability, it brings excitement as well, because everyone is always anticipating and eager to see what it is that you bring out. And that is very fundamental, because it applies in various aspects. Even when you're applying for a job, doesn't mean when something is readily available for you to get, then you jump onto that. Have a bit of power drawn to yourself, so that you can be able to know that, I'm not gonna just jump on anything. You can't. Even in relationships, just because somebody is asking you out doesn't mean that you have to be the first person to accept it. You need to build your brand around the fact that if this is what you are, these are the standards, then they can be pulled into you, because that standard becomes your pulling strategy based on what you have done to work on yourself versus what you do to work on them. Because we find instances where value is compromised, especially in the journey of you trying to assimilate and get ahead, based on that way you have placed and positioned yourself. And so when Red Bull used that strategy, look in hindsight, that brand awareness has led us to even maybe consider that. And that's where we see it to be in that regard. And so the pull strategy also promotes in reducing what needs to be done. And as well, it really does need you to go back to the drawing board, assess who you are, understand the variety of things that you are for, and then jump on to building that, so that strategy can easily apply on you. One of the products as well, which I'm very fond of as a South African, that I looked at, which was in the year 2014 at its launch, and I said I'm going to talk about energy drinks, is More Fire by DJ Sbu. What DJ Sbu did at the time, entering a market which was already saturated by the likes of Red Bull, international companies, South Africans were not really opening up at the time to buy locally produced energy drinks in that market. It was it's in and of itself saturated, but what it did is that it gave birth to more competitors at the time to actually think, maybe we can jump into this and put it at a lower price so that people can buy it. What DJ Sbu did, he pushed the product. He pushed it. If you remember the Metro FM saga, that he pushed the product and pushed the brand of More Fire, which in hindsight, in anything that they have developed, I remember at the time when it was pushed in 2014, which is a brand actually that had 3 years in the making before it was actually put out in 2014. And so what Sbu did in his approach was say, if you buy these amounts of More Fires, a certain fee, we want to educate 100 students in university. I think that the climax at the time was that there was not a lot of students who admitted or who had funds to go into university. And so that strategy on its own, it got to be at a push application, because even in 2014, the social media space was not so big to use influencers as much. We all were familiar with brand ambassadors. We were all familiar with, okay, this individual will stand for this brand, they'll be compensated, they push this and they push that. And so that didn't happen at the time, or was not really being done. And so we pushed, made sure that it was a way for people who are unemployed to get a few stocks of these things and then sell them, to put the brand out there, to make them believe that South Africans as well are in the game to do this part, which is something very commendable. And as a Sbusiso, and I've been a fan of him with what he has been doing, this approach really worked. And so looking at what he's done now, firstly, using the push strategy at first, now he has managed to get his product known. Now, if the product was pushed so much that it was known, a lot of work went into that. A lot of cost went into that, to the point where now it is available in many places that we can get, whether it's your filling stations, your retail stores, it's there. And having used that art of even getting different influencers to do so, such as your Robot Boy, and just to name a few, who now have their own line of flavor in this product. So to see that there's a way in which some strategies work. So you can push, you can be the person that, you know what, without any holding back, with the level of resilience, can put your name out there, can make sure that people know you, but for all the right reasons, because ultimately you're going to have to manage your brand name. You, who are you to the people? What's the first thing that they are positioned in their minds when they think about you? And that is very much critical to really look into, because if you're not using the pull strategy or push strategy, you do not know where it is that you need to apply yourself. You can't always push, neither you can't always pull. So you need to find a balance between the two. It is not manipulation. It is just you applying yourself differently so that you can be able to manage that aspect about yourself. Also, one of the other brands that we all love is Apple, that uses a pull strategy, when people line out in stores because of what they've put out. Previously, in their story branding, they put out all technical jargons and all of that, but when they connected with the consumer to make sure that they do something amazing with that brand, they were putting themselves in the position where consumers' brands understood that this particular brand is for me. It resonates with me. It saves me. It helps me in things that I need to do on my day-to-day actions and activities, so that I can become the hero in my own story. And so in a market that is saturated, in a market that is, everybody needs to find their own voice. Everybody needs to know who they really are. Everybody needs to be in the position where they understand that I can be this and I can be that. Pulling works. Pushing works. But everything in moderation, everything that you do must be done in clear, distinct moderation. And so with that said, with the video that we've done today, there are instances that in your life as your brand, you're going to have to push to get things across because nobody knows you. But the moment you've pushed so far, then understand your value. You push so far to get to your value that ultimately after that, what you do is you pull, because you are not better. You're not exclusive. You're not a walkover. There's value attached to you. And so act that way, because there is value to you. Always value to you. And so what I want to do and what I want to put out as well in this video is that I'm very much interested to just deep dive with any individual, whoever's interested, to know what do I dissect their branding to be and what it is that they need to do to become better in their journey. I'm willing to engage. I'm willing to hear you out. So as we build this community, please share your comments. Ask me what it is that you think they're doing wrong or right, and we can see how we can help. I'm also in my own journey, and so it will be great for us to help each other in that way. Apart from that, my good friends, thank you very much, and all good things to you. Stay blessed, beloved, and yes, keep your brand valuable.